About It topic. So let's get right into that. This is Wine About It, presented by L'uva Bella Winery. Nick, I'm going to let you kick this thing off because I know we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, first of all, I'm excited to get my L'uva Bella wines. They just got shipped today. So for the next episode, I should have a nice glass of wine. I don't know which one I will choose, but I should have a nice glass for our Wine About It segment, courtesy of L'uva Bella Wines. That said, I am going to whine about people whining, which is pretty funny.
This is just ironic at this point.
I know, right? It is ironic. But there were three things I saw people whining about, mostly on Twitter. There were more things, but I think three things that I was kind of like, stop whining about these things. So first was the Daniel Suarez caution late in the race, where, you know, Kyle Busch said he would have won the race if this had been a 500-mile race. Well, yeah, NASCAR did throw the caution quickly, but Suarez ended up stuck in the grass anyway before they ever came back around to the line, so they would have had to throw it anyway. So yeah, that doesn't matter. Stop saying, I mean, maybe NASCAR did have a quick trigger, but he got stuck anyway, so as far as influencing the outcome, it didn't. I think, obviously, had Suarez been able to get into pit lane and keep going, then it would have been bad. But I've seen people be like, well, it's not fair to Kyle Busch. He would have won the race. No, Suarez got stuck in the grass. So they would have thrown the caution anyway once he was stuck, because that is 100% a safety issue. You can't have cars coming around 200 miles an hour, 40 of them or 20 of them in a pack, ready to wreck in the same spots. I mean, that's where we also saw Riley Herbst wreck. So you definitely have to throw the caution there. Number two, obviously people whining about the commercials. I was one of them. But once the data was presented, I stopped whining about it, because
exactly
it was very clear they front-loaded the commercials, and it was no more than any other year. And I think there's two sides to this, right? Like, I know NASCAR and Fox especially, they have to make their money. Otherwise, we don't get this racing on TV. I do think there is a little component of maybe Fox mailing it in because their contract runs out after next year. But at the same time, the data's the data, and I'm a data guy, so we can't really complain about the commercials too much, even though it felt like it. I think it was an anchoring bias because we were anchored to what we initially saw, which was commercial to start the race. But exactly. At the end, it was a lot better.
And it was the first time that they've done this. So I don't know if you saw the tweets. I think it was Mike Joy or Larry Mack was on Twitter saying Fox hired a new producer, and this was his vision for this race. He wanted to be able to show as much as possible at the end of the race. So he purposely front-loaded commercials. Like, you can't deny that the commercials were front-loaded. But absolutely, when you understand that, it makes a lot of sense. Like, to me, I was like, okay, I'm not going to complain about commercials anymore, because it makes sense in the overall grand scheme of things that they want to show more at the end of the race.
Yeah. And then my third thing, I'm going to whine about people whining about the end of the race, because NASCAR is in a no-win situation there. They either end the race under caution and everybody whines that they didn't get to see green flag racing to the end, or they do overtime and then everybody complains that Kyle Busch didn't win and Dale Earnhardt would have won, or they, have a race to this line, or there's no perfect solution that's going to make everybody happy. So everybody is going to whine just because they want to about whichever way it goes. And unless NASCAR throws an absolute horseshit caution like they did in the All-Star race, for example, and even then that didn't end the race. NASCAR's in a box. They can't do anything to please everyone, and I see this when the Indy 500 ends under caution. You got to be kidding me! They didn't race to the finish. What the hell, right? Like, I see it on Twitter all the time when the Indy 500 ends that way, all the time. But then you see them ending in overtime, and it's, well, Kyle Busch would have won, and blah, blah. It's got to end some way, shape, or form. So whatever rules we play under, they all play under the same rules. Every single car out there plays under the same rules. So I don't care how it ends, as long as it doesn't end with a bullshit caution, right? I'm totally fine with whatever rules they put out there to end the race the way they want to do. Even the year when they had the overtime line and Harvick gamed the system, anybody could have gamed the system. Harvick was the one who did at Talladega that year. It sucked, and that's why they changed it. But at least everybody's playing under the same system, so there's nothing unfair about any of this. And even Kyle Busch himself, saying I would have won this if it was 1998. Sure, you would have, but it's not 1998, so move on.
Right? Yeah, and people are going to make a big deal about Kyle Busch's comments. That's Kyle Busch. You interview him after a race, after he wrecks out, when he has a chance to win, especially a big race like Daytona. He's going to have that, and I have always said that I think the sport needs more of that. I think the sport needs more Kyle Busches in it. Yes, it can be annoying at times, but at the same time, he did make a good, he clearly does not like this type of racing. He literally said, when we come down just to figure out when we're going to wreck. So, but I kind of want to go back to your Suarez thing, because yes, he ended up in the grass, but what if he wouldn't have? Because then it would have been a quick, too quick of a trigger. I just wanted to reiterate that point. Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. My point was when not the whining about the caution itself or the quick trigger, but saying that influenced the race, because it didn't end up influencing the race, because he still NASCAR still would have had to throw the caution. And I admit it was a quick trigger. I even said so. Why are they throwing the caution as I watched it live? And then when he ended up in the grass, it was well, doesn't matter anyway now.
Yeah.
So I agree with the quick trigger. That's not what I'm whining about. I'm whining about the people saying Kyle Busch would have won if NASCAR hadn't thrown the caution quickly. Well, no, NASCAR would have thrown the caution anyway.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
It's a little results-oriented, but at the same time, NASCAR didn't influence the outcome of that race.
Yeah, and as far as racing back to the line in that situation, I saw people legitimately post TikToks and tweet, well, they should have just raced back to the line anyway. You had 10 cars stopped in turn one. You're going to let cars come around at 200 miles an hour and hope they get slowed down by the time they hit turn one? Because the cars that wrecked aren't going to move. They're not going to be able to just get out of the way. What are you people talking about? That's how people die right there. What? Oh, that is some of the insane shit that I saw this week. I did see another decent proposition, and that's putting a second finish line on the track.
Yeah.
Second finish line on the track on the backstretch. If
race to that.
Yeah, if that same situation happens.
And that's different from the overtime. Let's be clear. That is different from the overtime line. The overtime line was if they wreck after they have crossed this line, then the race is finished. But this is if they've wrecked, we race to that line, or if they're past that line, we race to the finish line. Because halfway around the track, if they're wrecking on turn 3 and 4, or let's say, turn 1 and 2, then you race to the back stretch. Well, you're not coming back around to 1 and 2 at full speed. So I actually think that's a great solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And here's what it would do. Because if there's a wreck in turn 1, they're racing to that. If there's a wreck in turn 3, they're racing to the finish line. So
we get a race to the finish either way.
Exactly. I love that idea.
And we keep it safe. And the other thing is you can still roll the safety cars out there while they're racing to turn to the finish line. If the crash is in turn 3 and 4 or whatever, you can still roll the safety cars on the backstretch because the field's already cleared. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't make it any less safe. And so I think it's a really interesting and solid solution. As with any solution, though, there's probably going to be a way that it ends up breaking.
Yeah.
But there's never going to be anything perfect, I don't think, as far as how to end the race.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you on there. My second complaint, or my first complaint, I don't even know. I haven't even gotten to mine yet.
I was gonna say, what's your whine about it?
Okay, my first complaint is just Ty Gibbs. I already hated this guy. And then him fucking over the Toyotas in stage 1. Like I said, Keselowski made a great move. I'm going to stick with that he made a great move, and it was a difficult position for Ty Gibbs. But at the same time, Ty Gibbs just gave up. He did not even try to block Kez, didn't try to do anything. He just gave up and got out of line. And the reason I'm most pissed, and this is going to be a little hypocritical from some things I've said in the past, I had Truex 30-1 to win stage 1. I mean, I had Hamlin 16-1 to win stage 1. I was looking so gold. And then Ty Gibbs, of course it's Ty Gibbs. It has to be Ty Gibbs. Mm-hmm. I was so mad, man. I was because I love those bets, and it just irritates me because I had friends on those bets too. We were all watching it together, and that's just the most frustrating thing for me. But it was right there, can't man,
I couldn't believe it. I was rooting for you. I was only on the Truex bet, but I liked the Hamlin and sorry, not the Truex, the Kyle Busch bet, but I liked the Truex and Hamlin bets. And I still think the Kyle Busch bet was a good bet, given how good his car was. It just didn't obviously work out with the pits and everything like that. But I will say, though, I still don't think Keselowski necessarily made as good a move as much as Ty fucked it up, and it just opened the door for Kes and the Fords.
I can go either way. Before I re-watched the end of stage one, literally before we got on this podcast, I was like, okay, Keselowski might have made a pretty good move here. But before that, Ty Gibbs was dead to me. Excuse me. By the way, I'm not drinking tonight. I know you might have a little bit in your drink, but we're not doing the beers tonight for the first time in a while. My body needs to detox bad.
I'll have a beer or two on the show, but right now I'm starting off with some hot chocolate.
I didn't even set the line today because I knew I wasn't drinking, and yeah. But okay, number 2. I want to talk about the broadcast. Obviously, the whole commercials thing. Everybody's talking about that. Everybody's talking about how Fox has mailed it in. The announcers is what irritated me the most on Sunday. At the end of the race, when that final wreck happened and the most exciting time, we just decided, or the winner was just decided when the caution came out. The most monotone announcing I've ever heard. It was Clint Boyer. He said there, "Oh, Kyle Busch is going to make a move. Oh, he got turned." And then that's exactly his voice, what it sounded like. And then Mike Joy was like, and the caution comes out. It's like, can you show any excitement? The biggest race of the year, the most casual fans watching, and you sound like you're just about to go to bed.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I think Clint Boyer's really good in the booth. I think he's really entertaining. I think adding Tony Stewart in there was a good move. But that was the most disappointing part of it. I could not believe it. And even like the announcing at the end of the stages, just stuff where people are racing to the line, it was all just so, it's like they were disinterested. And man, that just irritates me. Because for a fact, even Rick Allen, Dale Jr. would have been ecstatic. He would have been going crazy at the end of that race. Rick Allen would have been going crazy. I hate Rick Allen, but I wish Rick Allen was in the booth for the Daytona 500.
But at least he shows emotion.
Yeah.
Even if, as much as we hate him and how dumb he is, at least he shows emotion. And I watched it back today, I think for the first time since Sunday. I didn't watch it yesterday. But I mostly slept yesterday. But so I watched the final few laps back today for the first time because, when you're in the moment and you've got sweating all these bets and stuff, I was worked up and excited, and I do feel like I remember in the moment being like, I don't really remember how it ended. It didn't, I remembered how it ended, but I didn't feel like it was like the TV giving it to me gripping. It was more like my own excitement. And I watched it back today knowing the results. I was like, man, that was boring. Not the finish itself, but just the excitement wasn't there. Mm-hmm. And so I totally agree with you. I just thought that was like very anticlimactic.
Yeah. And, I've said what I've said about the Fox broadcast itself, just how bad they are at video in general for this sport. Darren Rovell actually had a good tweet. He said, I'm not going to be able to find it that quick, but he basically said, any casual fan watching that Daytona 500 won't be back. That did nothing to bring more fans to the sport. And, the fact that it was Fox and it just embarrassing. But one final thing I want to talk about, and that's people that don't understand NASCAR betting. Very quick on this. You had an exchange with a guy on Twitter about this. NASCAR is not like other sports. We talked about this last week. NASCAR is not like other sports. You're not going to win a significant percent of bets, especially if you're betting outrights. But it's the fact that with other sports, if you're betting the spread, you're usually betting minus 110 odds. NASCAR, you're getting 8 to 1 or usually longer odds on these drivers. So you're going to lose a lot. And I try to tell this to all my friends that are getting into NASCAR betting. Be prepared to lose a lot. It's a very long season. And it's a very long process. But if you trust the process and you get and you're smart about this, you're going to make money. we've proven it time and time again. You and I both have. You're going to make money as long as you're smart with your bets, but just be prepared to lose. And another part of people that don't understand NASCAR betting are also people that give out bets themselves. I'm throwing them into this category and don't understand to shop around for odds. Like they're stuck with one book, so they just tweet out the odds from that book and then bet on that. When, for example, a guy could be 40-1 at one book and 30-1 at his book, and he's going to give away the 30-1. Everyone needs to do their own research, but if you're following somebody that's giving away betting picks, you need to make sure that they're checking for the best odds, because as we saw it early this week for Auto Club. Like right now, I think Byron's at 12-1 on Caesars maybe, and he's 18-1 on FanDuel. Like that is a massive difference. That's a massive difference. So just make sure you're getting the best lines. And just any dumb people that don't understand NASCAR betting, if you come after somebody, that's fine. But when you get put in your place and you get proven, by the way, I just noticed I was wrong. Truex also finished top 10 in both stages. There's squirrel moment with my brain.
It happens. I still like it, though, because if only 2 drivers finished in the top 10 in both stages, then our 2+ stage win bet was, like, fucking good. And, yes. I mean, honestly, it wasn't close. Like, the only risk there was Kez maybe winning the race at the end, but even then that didn't come close. So, yeah, we absolutely smashed that, and it was. I mean, you even get people questioning that. Did you really bet that? Of course we did.
Yeah,
of course
we
did.
That's the final thing I'm going to say on this. People saying that we don't bet what we put out. Why would we do that? Like, what do we have to gain by putting out bets that we don't actually bet? I mean, if you listen to last week's episode, you could basically hear us putting those bets in.
Yeah,
there was
exactly.
There was like a solid 30 seconds of silence because we're both trying to get these bets in because we knew how crazy that line was, and we were just trying to get it in because we knew it was going to move, and obviously it did. 10 minutes later, it's minus 280. Yeah. So, yeah. So that's all I have to say. That's going to conclude our wine about it segment this week. Again, presented by L'uva Bella Wines. You can find them in Kroger, Meijer, Walmart, several states, including North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia. And next week, hopefully you get your wines in time. I have a couple here already, but we will definitely be trying them and saying our thoughts there. But
oh yeah, for sure.
Moving on to Auto
By the way, real quick, L'uva Bella Winery, LB Wines, LB Winery. My dog is LB. He's sitting right here. Just wanted to throw that out there. That was kind of cool of a coincidence.
Perfect combination.
So we've got a little mascot here for our sponsor.